Today, Konami wants you to disassemble your hard-earned nukes to make the world a better place. We think. This is CheckPoint. Welcome to CheckPoint, now broadcasting in 8K Quantum HD Imagination-O-Vision. If you're not seeing the new high-def signal, try squinting your eyes and imagining really hard. As you've probably heard, Namco Bandai's patent on video game loading screen mini-games expired on Friday, meaning finally anyone can have a little distraction game during loading screens, instead of helpful tips, or just reading you the instructions again. Namco's held the patent since 1995, so for 20 years, anyone who wanted to have a mini-game on a loading screen had to pay licensing fees or weirdly obscure what they were actually doing. But no longer. Imagine, in Fallout 4, instead of looking at a 3D model of a mutated tomato, you could get to play that Donkey Kong-style Pip-Boy game, Red Menace. Wouldn't that actually be really annoying? You're on a good run, getting invested in the minigame, and then the area loads in. I would have been really excited about this, say, 4 or 5 years ago, but now loading screens are where I dick around with my phone on Twitter or Reddit. I've written entire business emails during loading screens in Destiny, though maybe that says more about Destiny's load times than it does about my second screen experience. I can barely watch an entire Vine while I'm fast traveling to Diamond City. Look, what I'm saying is, broadly speaking, this is awesome, but maybe less relevant now that loading times aren't utter butts anymore. The Dragon's Lair Kickstarter is dead. Long live the Dragon's Lair Kickstarter. Director Don Bluth, known for creating the classic video game Dragon's Lair, and a bunch of overly sappy, emotionally manipulative movies Kathleen seriously hates, has cancelled the Kickstarter for the Dragon's Lair animated movie, opting instead to relaunch it on Indiegogo. Bluth didn't give much of an explanation for the change, saying in a final Kickstarter update he wanted to create, quote, a stronger, more valiant campaign, which seems to be meaningless marketing speak for a stronger, more valiant campaign where I get to keep all of the money you give me even if we don't make the $550,000 goal. As a reminder, Bluth is asking for $550,000 in order to create a 10-minute proof of concept short to use to secure $70 million in funding that he actually needs to make a feature-length Dragon's Lair movie, so maybe don't get your hopes up. It appears Riot has had it with toxic players, and when they've had enough, Chucklefuck League of Legends players don't get anything. Literally. Riot is working on a new loot and reward system, and if players are flagged enough for bad behavior, they will lose access to their post-game goodies. Riot describes the system as a new carrot for playing with friends and for being a positive player in the game. I appreciate that Riot is cutting right to the chase and admitting they're basically bribing people to act decently, but realistically, they've tried carrots before, and League of Legends players still love to act like turds. So sure, this is a bigger, juicier carrot, but it's still a carrot. Let's move past the carrot when this inevitably fails, and onto sticks. As in, hire someone to hit the most grievous players repeatedly about the face and neck with sticks. It's the only way to be sure. Last week, Konami confirmed that Metal Gear Solid 5's secret disarmament event is indeed a real thing, and is basically impossible. Discovered back in September through data mining, which is just so on brand for this franchise, the nuclear disarmament event will trigger something to happen when each one of the game's multiplayer forward operating bases in a given geographic region dismantles all their nukes and has no nukes in production. Disarmament in the virtual world is proving just as challenging, if not more so, than the real world. Because not having nukes makes you vulnerable, and being one of the few bases to have nukes makes you a target. And there isn't that whole real-world greater good of humanity angle. So, we'll see how MGS5 players do, but at least when it comes to actual nuclear disarmament, the United Nations doesn't have to deal with trolls. Although there is North Korea. PlayStation archaeologists have made a startling find while excavating the lower levels of the PS4's architecture, a hitherto inaccessible 7th processing core. Since the time of the pharaohs, the PlayStation 4 was rumored to have 8 cores, but only 6 of them had been found by developers. Legends say the mythical 7th and 8th cores were reserved for system-level processes and probably Netflix. But with this latest discovery, revealed under a layer of sediment deep within a Sony changelog, the 7th core is real, and developers will now be able to add its power to their existing 6. Will the 8th core ever be reached by developers? Are there even more, yet unknown cores deep within the italicized monolith? we may never know inside our lifetime. Was that metaphor too strained? Was it, in fact, a simile and not a metaphor? Perhaps an analogy? Only time and pedantic commenters will tell. I'm Graham Stark. This has been CheckPoint. Coming up, Harmonix has announced free Fallout 4 costumes for Rock Band, confirming that not even the nuclear war can get rid of those plastic instruments everyone has in their basement. Apparently the Xbox One did something similar in January. Mm-hmm. They also let developers use their 7th core, but developers found that it made voice commands not work. Or it didn't work because voice commands use like half that core.